Hello. So, you've seen the title. I'm going to read you two or three creepypasta stories off the website creepypasta.com. And this one is called I'm Not Afraid of the Basement. And it's by, or the credit goes to, Stuart Capperpot. I hope I said that name wrong. Right. I hadn't been to my childhood home since my parents got divorced. Now, disclaimer, this is not my story. I was 5 years old when I was last in that home. It was very important to me to have my home in my possession. My dad built half of the house and the entire backyard. Now that I'm married and ready to start a family, I really wanted my old childhood home back in my life. I didn't have much of a childhood, and this was one place where I really remember feeling happy. Everything was perfect in that house, but there was one thing that I found odd. There was an extra door that I don't remember being next to the master bedroom. It had 3 padlocks on it above the doorknob, and one chain latch near the floor. Joel, my husband, gave me a side glance at my reaction. The credit goes to Stuart. Stuart Gay? Not that it matters. Was this not here before, he asked me? No, I have no idea what this door could be. It was an extra bedroom. Why the locks? If it was an extra bedroom, why the locks? It's okay, Lucy. Okay, good. It's okay, Lucy. We'll get some bolt cutters tomorrow, Joel said as he went out to the car. Honestly, it just puzzled me. It couldn't have been an extra room. There was no space between the master bath and the master bedroom, just 8 feet apart from each other in the hall. It was strange to try and think what the HE double lucky sticks the previous owners built in my house. Even when I didn't live here in this building was always my house. It took all day to get most of the boxes moved into the large living room. Memories started flooding back to me about the fun times of this house. It was too bad that all the big furniture wouldn't arrive from Maryland until tomorrow. When it finally came time to crash, Joel and I laid out some blankets in the master bedroom along with some pillows. It was surreal to be sleeping in the room that once belonged to my parents. There was a small room across the hall that used to be my bedroom. Past the living room, dining room, and in the hall closet to the front of the home was another full bedroom and what used to be my older sister's room. Before it was her room, that room was my nanny's. Nanny was my father's mother, and from what I can remember, she was an amazing woman. She died before I was 5 of a heart attack, and Paul passed 2 months before I was born. Remembering some of these things so late at night kept me awake. I had to glance at my phone to check what time it was. Midnight. We didn't have any food yet in the house, but we did have our plating and glassware. After ripping open a box in the kitchen, I let the faucet run for a second before filling a cup with water. Something odd caught my attention. I heard some rustling in the living room. It didn't even come from the living room, but the door between the master bath and bedroom. The locked door. I was a bit worried, but I put my ear to the door. Skitter, skitter. It sounded like squirrels to me. Where was that? Like claws on cement. Squirrels, raccoons, and cats in basements or attics were a common thing in Illinois, so I wasn't too worried. I would just have to remember to tell Joel in the morning before we went to get the bolt cutters. Morning soon came, but I didn't get any sleep really. Joel was still asleep around 11 a.m., but I just started unpacking. I was so happy to have much cabinet space in such a large kitchen. It sure as hell beats a tiny apartment space. Yes, it does. Everything will really come together when the furniture gets here. Skitter, skitter. Scratch. Those damn sounds again. I set down the stack of plates I was putting away and put my ear to the door again. They sounded close and frequent. Better have not been mice. Mice were such a huge problem because we lived in a farm town, and they would not be ruining my house. I couldn't stand mice. I had so many problems with them when I lived here before. I graduated high school. One even jumped down my mom's shirt and into the same place. One knocked up my hamsters somehow. Yep. Yeah. After the scratching stopped, it sounded like boxes toppling over. There must have been a colony of whatever in there, as well as other owners' items. I went to the bedroom and poked at Joel with my foot to wake him up. "Get up, babe, and you get the day started," I said softly before kneeling down and kissing his cheek. Not me, obviously. Joel muttered and chuckled at my kisses before pulling me close into a hug. "No, I want to be here all day with you, Luce. I love this man to death, but God, man, he joke too much when business needs to get done. Nope, get up. We have SHIT to do," I said before pushing his long curls at his face. "Brush your teeth and get up." I gave him a pat on the cheek before getting him up again. Once we got back from Walmart, Joel and I got ready to open the locked door. We had picked up some mouse traps, cheese, flashlights, replacement padlocks with keys and bolt cutters. It took both of us to press on the cutters to snap all 3 padlocks. The chain lock was actually rusted, so Joel snapped easily with the cutters. I unlocked the door and I was met with a musty, stale air. Dust floated in the void from the other side and hung in the air. That led down a staircase. It is a basement. God, there's a lot more reading to do. "It's a basement," Joel said as he shined his flashlight down the stairs before looking at the other side of the door. He crouched down to feel long gouges on the lower part of the door. They must have had dogs down here or something. Bubby used to paw at the back door when he wanted to come in. I listened to him, but I went down the stairs carefully. They were very creaky, just like my grandmom's old basement stairs. Literally. With the aid of my flashlight, I gazed around the basement. It was so cluttered with old boxes and storage tubs. I saw the fallen tower of boxes that I heard toppled over the night before. Joel and I laid over the traps and took a deeper look into the basement. It was very expansive, covering the entire house. Most of it was walled off with a storage, but in the back of the area, there was a living space. A refrigerator, sofa, television, twin-size cot, the works. Joel flipped on a light switch and half the area lit up. Dear God, it was smothered in dust. The couch was scratched up like a cat bore 3 tore at it in the bedroom. I knelt down to look at the dust of the floor, staring at the tracks in it. They looked similar to raccoon paws, but they were too big for a raccoon. Joel distracted me with opening up the fridge to find a half-empty jar of pickles. Honestly, that wasn't the first time I've seen that. After a year in the house, I was excited to tell Joel the big news. He was delighted to hear that he was going to be a father. We went down to the basement often to look around for children's things. We found many baby toys and play items, even a dismantled crib. And you're going to use it? Ew. Joel mentioned that I was odd of how many things were in this basement. It was strange, but we both admitted that free was free. Joel and I set up the nursery in my old bedroom after cleaning everything off. We were so excited for the baby that it outweighed the rodents in the basement. I noticed that some of our food had been nibbled or full bites being taken out of it. Joel and I were both midnight snackers, so we didn't think much of it. The baby came months later, and we were both so happy. His name was Josiah Michael, and he was a perfect baby boy. When Josiah was still a newborn, something strange happened while Joe was at work. I was giving my son a bath in the front hall bathroom when I heard scratches at wood. I tried to tune them out so I could finish bathing Josiah before I put him to bed. The sounds were getting louder and more frequent, but what made me jolt was the door slamming open. It made me snatch up my baby as fast and carefully as I could. I wrapped Josiah up and held him to my chest. The parlor door was closed and locked then. I turned my attention to the other end of the hall. It was the door to the basement, wide open. The door opened with such a strength that there was a hole in the wall from the knob. I was so freaked out and in fear for my baby's life that I rushed to the kitchen to grab our largest knife. I held it with the blade to the floor and the sharp sides facing outward. Sounds ignited from my son's bedroom, sounds that horrifying me to this day. Biting, gnawing, growling, something was in my house. Joel's car pulled into the driveway, making me break my line of sight for just a second. The door slammed shut as soon as I looked away. I was holding back a scream as to not scare Josiah. When Joel got into the house, I told him exactly what happened. I was close behind him when he took a peek into our son's room. One of the toys we had brought up from the basement had completely been chewed in half. Ew, what is in your house? I told Joel about what I'd witnessed, but he told me to calm down first. He went down into the basement to take a look around, but didn't find anything out of place. To ease my mind, Joel added 2 of the padlocks back onto the door. It did ease my mind, and eventually we unlocked it again. Well, I'm gonna end this one here. This is a lot of reading. I'm gonna find another one to read. It says submit a pasta. The frick was that? Scared the heck out of me. I'll pause it. Okay, I'm back. This next story I'm going to read to you is called The Rake. And no, it is not about a gardening tool. Here we go. During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Brief preliminary focused in rural New York State, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group, and was able to get some experts from their upcoming book, The Rake, A Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I felt it necessary to assume any guilt or pain I have introduced to this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him, for once I awoke and felt his presence. And once I awoke, I saw his form. Once again, I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Lenny, I prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry translated from Spanish, 1880. Wow, the Rake is that old? I experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand, I will not sleep. His voice. Hey. Can we get to Okay, this is a good one. Here we go. From a witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We're all very exhausted after a long day of driving. Yeah, I mean, it's all the way up in New York, unless you're going to Canada. So my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. What time is it? At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him though he got out of the bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed. So quickly, his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for a half a second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed, and then crawled quickly in a flaying sort of motion right along the bed until it was less than a foot away from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5. It just seemed like a while. Just looking at my husband, the creature then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' rooms. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. He did not survive. Being a small town, news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of other 2 people in New York who had seen the creature, and we now referred to as the rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be the accounts of the rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages, and never mentioned it again. A ship's long explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that we were told to leave by the rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. This still took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the rake. I can't listen to it as long enough to even be transcribed it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I've not seen the rake since he ruined my life, but I know that but he has been in my room while I slept. I know in fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me. I've gotten a lot of requests for this story recently, both by email and the C-Box, so here it is. Couldn't find the original author, it's just a repeated post of the story in a CA Ghost thread. SA Ghost thread. So you know, comment and like me. This story was by... No. There's no credit. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all in my next video.